All right. So in this session, we will be creating an app on the deployment server, and we'll push a particular app to a respective forwarder, and we see how this particular data from this forwarder gets ingested to this indexer with the help of the configuration from deployment server. So in the last session, we did ingested the data manually. We did configure inputs and outputs that configuration on the forwarder itself. I mean, we directly configured all these changes on the forwarder, but in our day-to-day activities, this is not the best practice, right? Because we'll have thousands of forwarder machine, and it is not good practice to log in on the forwarders and configure my inputs and outputs configuration. This is one of the reason. The second reason why we go with deployment server rather than configuring the configurations on the forwarders, because most of the servers will not have access itself. If, for example, if let's say if I have to onboard some of the SAP server logs to my Splunk, then SAP servers will be maintained by someone else. Then I cannot go ahead and request access to those servers, right? So instead, I can get the necessary information of the application server, for example, for SAP server, and I can configure them from the deployment server, so that without having much access to or forwarder servers, I can manage my configuration with the help of deployment server. Right. So this is a typical example we do, typical process we do follow. We'll be configuring inputs and outputs configuration, props, transform, whatever the configurations on the deployment server. Now, the first job is to establish a connection from deployment server to this forwarder. How can we do that? We have something called as deployment client dot configuration file, where exactly we create under etc system local. So we will be creating this deployment client dot configuration file on the forwarder, and I will make sure that I should give the IP address of the deployment server, so that this particular forwarder should listen to this deployment server. We'll do that. Okay, I think I have some comments. We'll see. Yeah. So we'll have to create this deployment client dot configuration on the forwarder. So please understand here we want to push our configurations from the deployment server to this forwarder. So as of now, we have one forwarder. Now on the forwarder side, I'll have to create a deployment client dot conf file. So this is the location where I am now. Yeah, this is correct. Now what I'll do, I'll just create deployment client dot conf. Now I should give the, yeah, and this is my deployment server, right? So I need to give this configuration. So first of all, the first answer we should give deployment client. See, previously we did generated the configuration file with the help of the commands. Now I want to show you how to create the configuration files, right? So here we need to give the target URI refers a deployment server IP address. So this is my deployment IP address. So deployment server IP address 207.118.192. You're getting what I'm saying? So this is a command. This is the stanzas we use on the forwarders, which will be created under deployment client.configuration file, which means that here I'm trying to deploy the client, and which is a target broker. This is, I mean, which is a deployment server. Then what is a target URI? This is the IP address, and this is the management port. If you remember, in the outputs.configuration file, we had given triple N7 because from there it used to ingest the data via triple N7, and this is called as management port. So that the the communication between deployment server and forwarder taken place. Okay, now I'll just have to give this information, say deployment client, target broker, which is deployment server, and what is the target URI? This is the deployment server IP address with the management port. Where I'm doing all these changes, this is on the forwarder side. So once this is done, I should be able to see the client on this particular forwarder management. It may take some time, but we'll wait for it. Right, so now a new stanza, a new complete folder structure, no, a different graphical user interface we can see. We'll wait for some time. And meantime, what we can do, we need to create a folder from the deployment server, right? So from where we'll have to push our configurations, correct? So what I'm trying to say, for this particular universal forwarder one, let me create, okay, let me consider this name only. Let me try to create app one, and from this app one, I will write my configurations, and I'll push the configuration to here, and this will in turn push the data to indexer, right? So we'll get into deployment server. We'll create the folder structure. We'll see how it works. And meantime, it has to see we should be able to see the client in some time. It takes some time. We'll see. Meantime, we'll make the necessary changes on the deployment server. Once again, please note here, this is the folder structure. Let me get into here. Splunk, OPT, Splunk, etc. Yeah. Please understand. If this particular server, see, I'm just named as a deployment server, but I have not configured anything on this server, right? If this server has to work as a deployment server, then I must place the apps under this folder. If you see some of the folders or apps under deployment apps, then it is called as a deployment server. Typically, if this particular component has to work as a cluster manager, then it has to, we'll have to have some folders and under master apps. And similarly, if it has to work as a deployer, then we need to make use of SH cluster folder. We will see in future. So how it works. Did we miss anything? It is not okay. Client. Client is listening to this one. Okay. Now, the next point here is that we'll have to create an app from this deployment server, right? So we will see that. So what I'll do, I'll just, as I mentioned, so we'll have to make use of this deployment apps folder. And within this, we need to create a folder called, for example, test app. OK, just giving a test app. See, then I'm just getting into test apps. And typically we'll be creating the local folder. OK. CD local. All right, so and this is my thing. So which means I have created a folder called test app on the deployment server. Do you see my point? I have just created a test app folder under deployment app, which means let us consider app one. We have created a app one, which means a test app on the deployment server, and we'll have to push to this particular forwarder. We will see if it client. See. Still client has not come. See, okay, we'll see that. But typically, see, we just created app. Please understand, we just created the app under where did we create the app? On the deployment server, correct? Correct. we did create a folder on the deployment server. And here, what is this? See, this is the folder have created under deployment apps. Now, if I can go on universal forwarder, if I just go to Splunk CD, Splunk forwarder, etc apps, okay. See, there should be app gets pushed to this forwarder. If you don't see that, then there is an issue. Okay, I will see why it has not pushed. Okay, because we need to do one more thing here. But client, I don't see. I should be able to see one of the client here. Did we do something wrong on the forwarders? Let's see, OPT, Splunk, folder, etc, system, local, deployment, client.conf, which is correct only. It should be that. This is my deployment server only, right? 18.207.118.192. Okay, let me try to restart. We'll see. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. See, we did the configuration changes on the configuration file, right? So we manually did the configuration changes, which means we'll have to restart the forwarder. Okay, I think we have done this. Should be able to see it in some time. We'll see what are these options in some time, but first I want to see this client information. Let me check if something has to be covered here. It will come. I think we need to wait for some time. It is system. I think I was there only. Correct, and the client, everything is correct. So what exactly this configuration do here? This is on the forwarder, right? So it looks for the deployment client, and this is the valid IP address of the deployment server we have given. So from here, it tries to register this universal forwarder host will try to register to this deployment server with the help of 8089 port. See, it has come. So what was the mistake we did? We did manually create our deployment client or configuration file, but we did not restarted it, right? So now it is there. Please understand. Now, after we entering our configurations, we did restart order service. Then this is the host name and everything. So which means this particular this universal forwarder is listening to this deployment server. We are good here, right? So, which means this universal forwarder is listening to this deployment server. How? Because of this configuration changes, which means here on the forwarder side, I have given the, created a file called deployment client.configuration file, and where have mentioned this data. So which means this is the deployment server. I want to listen to it over the port 8089, and this is the deployment server IP address. So, and this is my deployment server, and it is showing me uh, this particular host is reporting to this. This is a deployment server, right? So on this deployment server, I see one of the client which is listening here, but it says that 0 apps have been deployed. See, we just created a one app in the deployment server, right? See here, I can see test app, but the same thing we are not seeing in the apps folder, because we have not linked our apps with the client. This is the beauty here. See, whatever I create on the deployment server, it does not get pushed to all the forwarders. Please understand this one, right? See, here have on the deployment server have created an app called test app, but it is visible in the deployment server, but it never pushed to my universal forwarder. Please look at here. I don't see any of the apps information because I'm not linked. See, if I don't have the facility to link, then whatever the apps, whatever the folder which I create under deployments apps folder, everything gets pushed to the forwarders. This is not the good practice, right? This is not the expected way. So in order to link a app from a deployment server to the universal forwarder, please understand, in order to establish a connection from deployment server, in order to push the configuration from deployment apps folder from the deployment server to the universal forwarder, we need to create something called a server class. Right? Click here. I'll just say test apps, whatever. I'll just say test apps just to maintain uniqueness. Okay, click on save. See, here you have two options. Please understand this particular test apps I'm creating in a server class, so that from the deployment server, I want to push the data to this particular universal forwarder, not to all the forwarders, right? So in that case, what I'll do, let me select the apps. Which app I want to select here? Test app, correct? Do you see my point? So I'm just selecting the test app. Click on save. And similarly, this particular app should deploy to add, should get deployed to this particular client. So I think so. This is the way where we can, right? See, preview doesn't match, right? So which means I need to map. See, please understand this one. So in the list, if let's say whatever the universal forwarders or whatever the forwarders are listening to deployment server, all will be listed down here. So in my, I'll create another universal forwarder and I'll showcase with you. Now I'm trying to add this particular IP address. See, in my previous section, I did select the app for this particular test apps. Now I want to make sure that this should get deployed to this particular IP address only. See, so which means include. If I want to exclude, I need to give here. But in my case, I'll have to match it here. See, preview. If I just click on preview, then it says it is matched. If you click on matched here, it should say now, which means I have configured. Please understand, I have configured this particular app on this universal forwarder. See, this is the test app which I have created. No, this is the server class which I have created, and for this I have attached this test app and where to forward the data. Now, with this, I think if I just do ls, think I need to perform server reload option. See, please understand this one. Now, automatically from the deployment server, a test app got pushed. Please understand this one, right? Previously, I was not having this test app because how this particular test app, it came here because of this server class. We will see once again. So I have created the server class. So which means for each and every forwarders, so which means for this universal forwarder, what have done, have created a server class called test apps. And after creating this one, I linked the app with the client so that a dedicated configuration particular apps only. For example, I'm not see okay. As of now, if you just go to test apps, I will have local. I'll not have any config, like this is the default configurations file gets created, but I have not created any inputs or outputs configuration file at all. See, the purpose of creating an app, is to push the configuration, but this is just a folder. I have not pushed any configurations. Now, what I will do, so this is the deploy, this is the universal forwarder, right? Now what I'll do, I'll just go to deployment server. I'll get into test app, all right, and I'll go to local. Now, what I will do, I will create inputs configuration and outputs configuration. Inputs configuration and output configuration. Please note here, for this, I am creating a folder. I'm creating another test file where log. Please understand, see, how exactly this communication will happen from deployment server to forwarder here. See, if I just ls, we have test.log. What I will do, I will create another file called test2.log, right? And what I will write here, pushing the configurations from deployment server to universal forwarder and then index the data into Splunk indexer. Okay, so which means this log I've just created in universal forwarder. Please understand this one. Nowhere I've created this log on the deployment server because deployment server, it is just talks about the configurations, not on the file, right? Now I want to read this test2.log file from this universal forwarder. But again, as I promised, I will not be configuring. Typically what we will do here, if I just go, it is plan forwarder, etc apps. What is that? Under search app, we had local. And again, we had inputs.configuration file, right? So this one we had created, correct? This one we had created. Now, what we will do, I mean, in my previous assignment, we did create them manually on the forwarder. Now these configurations, I will put it in the deployment folder, and from the deployment folder, I'll push it here. We will see how, right? Now what I will do, I will just create inputs.conf. Inputs.conf. Now, let me just, or I'll take this one only. I think I can. I think I'm already having them. Let me just try to. Yeah. What is the log file which we want to read? Test2, right? See, please understand. This is a universal forwarder, and previously we were monitoring bad log test.log file. Now I want to monitor test2.log file, and I have created an index called test. Now see, previously we had ingested the data to main index. Now we will be doing this. will be ingesting the data into test index. See, in my previous assignment, and this configuration was generated with the help of the command. Now I want to show you how to create the configuration files manually. So on the deployment server, please understand, on the deployment server, I'm just monitoring this stanza. So where exactly it is getting pushed, this gets pushed to this particular client. I mean, because this client is listening to this app, we'll see that. So I think I'm done with the changes. So similarly, see, have my inputs.configuration file. Similarly, I need to create a outputs.configuration file, which means where have to deploy my, where have to I forward my data, right? Again, yeah, this is the outputs.configuration file, right? And this is the indexer, correct? This is the forwarder and this is the indexer. 18.205. Church 18.205. What is that? 18.205, 25.100. 25.100. So I think I'll have to give the same IP address here also. Please note here, see the previously I did generate all these configurations with the help of the commands. Now I'm just showing you how to create the configuration files on any of the Splunk servers. So TCP out, everything is fine. Now, after making the changes, we don't necessarily need to restart the server. Instead, I'll have to reload the deployment server. How to reload the deployment server? OPT Splunk pin Splunk reload deploy server. So this is a command. When we see as and when we push, when we make some changes on the configuration changes on a particular folder, then if we just execute this command, then which will reload the server classes. See what it is saying? Yeah. Reloading the server classes, which means when I say reloading the server classes, it will come to this server class. What is this test app? And what do we have this? What do we have under this test? No, test app. So which is we have one app which is already there. Where exactly this app have been configured on this particular client. Right? Can show here edit app. See edit client. We have options. So let's see. Click on cancel now. After reload, if I just see previously I did not have any CD Splunk border UTC app. We have test apps. Control LS local. See, this is the beauty. Now inputs.configuration and outputs.configuration have been pushed to universal forwarder from the deployment server. Right now, what we'll do, we'll see what is the command, what is the inputs.configuration. Correct, right? So we are given test.file. See, which means whatever the log file we want to read from the universal forwarder, we will give the path from the deployment server itself. Then this will get pushed to this particular forwarder. Why it is only getting pushed to this particular forwarder? Because we have created a server class and we are now dedicatedly mentioned that it has to go to this particular client only. Right, so that's the reason we created a server class and we have told that this particular app should go to this client. Now if I just go to indexer, and as I'm also considering as a search it, let's see. So if I just go with index is equal to main, it will show me the previously ingested data. And now if I just oh, something is not there, it should go to test index. Why it is not going? It is good to troubleshoot these kind of issues. So we need to check the outputs.configurations. Do we need to restart? Yeah. 1 second. Let me. This is my forwarder, right? So as per our practice, it should have. Let me check. Outputs.configuration file. 18.205.25.100. Correct. 777. This is correct. So no issues. 18.205.25. Okay. And similarly, let me check. What's var log test2? Do we have uh, do we have test2.log? No. Hey, come on. It is there. Test2.log. It is there. Why it is not coming? Okay, let me try to restart forwarder service. We'll see. And did we mention? See, it has come. Are you saying this one? Pushing the configuration from the deployment server to universal forwarder. So which means I have pushed the data. See, I have created the log file in the universal forwarder. That is correct. I've created test2.log file I've created in the universal forwarder. But what are the configuration? Everything I've pushed from the uh, deployment server. Okay, now I'll quickly. So this is about our configuring universal forwarder. But as per our diagram, I need to show this one also, right? So let me try to create another one just to showcase all the apps will not get pushed to to all the forwarders, right? So let me try to create another no, forwarder and let's try to listen to this deployment server. And if we just listening to deployment server, it doesn't mean that whatever the apps which is there and this server gets pushed here. Okay? Until and unless we need to create the server class. We need to create the server class, right? We'll quickly see that one also. That is the instance universal forwarder. Not sure if you have already installed Splunk. If not, we'll quickly install. Think we have already installed, right? We'll see. Okay. And this is a universal forwarder which we have created on Ubuntu. So let me log in as Ubuntu as my user. I think, yeah, we have not installed Splunk also. All right, no issues. So we'll just quickly install Splunk. So I have already, what is the first thing? So we need to use the wget command. So I think I've already captured the wget command here. So we'll just make use of this, the RPM one. It's a forwarder, right? I need to, yeah, we have the same one, right? Yeah, we can make use of this one only. Yeah, so let me do wget. It is getting saved. It got saved now. Now, what I have to do? I have to log in with so the user or yeah. I can say server dp page I Splunk. Now I'm just installing my Splunk software. Splunk this one. So afterwards I need to start it, right? So let me log in as root user opp Splunk product payments Splunk start. So you can always refer to previous video if you are not familiar with universal forwarder installation. So yeah, so I'm just giving my username and password, everything is fine. So now my Splunk universal forwarder is set up. Now, what is the next step? What we need to do, we'll have to create some of the log file here. What I will do, I will be creating a log file dot test 5 or test 3 dot log file, and I want to monitor from here. Right. So quickly, I'll just and before that, let me rename to universal 2 forwarder. Okay. Host name CTL set host name, and this is Splunk universal forwarder 2. Done. Now I think if I just open DC space, yeah, this is correct. Now what I'll do, I'll just create one file under var log. You can create anywhere, but typically all the logs will be there under var logs. So see, I don't have any other file. See, please look at here. So in the universal forwarder, we have created test2 log and test log. Now, because this is completely new machine, right? I want to read some of the logs here. So I'm creating fresh log called vi test3.log. So this is the data universal forwarder two. Okay, so let me save this. Now I'll have to what I'll have to do. That's the second step. We need to create a deployment client, right? So where have to create the deployment client? See team, I've just created a file to ingest the log, right? What is that? Test3.log file. So what I need to do here in the configuration file, I need to write inputs.configuration and outputs.configuration, right? So here I need to give 3.log file, right? And here I need to give the indexer IP. We don't let us not get confused. We'll go one by one. Now it has to listen to my deployment server. In order to listen to deployment server, I need to get into PC system local. I need to create a deployment client.configuration file. So deployment client.com. Please make sure you type correctly, otherwise it will be the problem. And what we have to write it here. So this is the one, right? So just to check, this is the valid deployment server. Is that true? What is the deployment server? IP address. 18.207, just to check, yeah, correct. So this is the correct deployment server IP address. So I'm just now creating a deployment client.configuration on the newly created forwarder and pasting here. So which means I'm saying, so just listen to this deployment server. Now, as this is a configuration changes, I need to restart my Splunk service on this universal forwarder. So once that is done, then we should be able to see the newly created client, right, on the deployment server 2. We'll see. And see in the forwarder management, I should be able to see another client. It may take some time, but at this time we'll wait for some time. That particular client should report here. Right, so the count wise it should get increased to 2. Excuse me. We'll wait for a bit. It should come. It is correct. We'll wait for some time. Yeah, look at here. Now, we did not give. Is it? Did we? Splunk universal forwarder 2. It has come. Okay, that's okay. Now at least we can see the hostname detail here. We'll see later. Now the newly created forwarder, it started reporting to this deployment server. Now see it, whatever the apps which we created in the deployment apps folder, right? See, which means we have created a test app here. So as we have linked with the help of apps. I mean, we created a server class for this particular forwarder and we linked apps and client. See now if you just go to this one, right? This is a newly created forwarder, etc apps. We will not be seeing the particular app because we did not establish any connection between my apps to this client, right? So now what I'll do, I'll create another app in the file deployment client. Please understand. So I'm just creating test app 3. Okay, just I'm just creating another one. I mean test app 3. And again, what I'll do, I will be creating sorry, I looked into test app 3, correct. And again, directory local cd local, right? And then I'll create inputs.configuration and outputs.configuration, right? Please understand inputs.configuration I'm creating here. Let me just copy so that I should not be making any issues. See, I want to monitor test 3 dot. I mean, it remains everything same. And also, I'll just ingest this to test index. Right, if you want to have it separate index also fine, but for now, let me put it here only. This is my inputs.configuration. I'm just checking the stanza index, everything is looking good. Now, if similarly I want to create outputs.configuration, outputs.configurations. So let me come here. And this is my indexer address, correct? Is it correct? 10.205.25.100. This is also correct. So let me give these configurations. All right. Now I have created both inputs.configurations and outputs.configurations on the deployment server, right? This is fine. Now what I have to do, I'll have to create the server class and I'll have to establish a connection between apps and client. Correct? See what I will do. I will be creating new server class called test app 3, and then here I will be linking apps. Which apps it has to go? Test 3 app. Save. See, please understand this one. Here I'm adding a client. So here I'm saying whatever the test 3 app which I have created on the deployment server, it should go to this particular IP address. Right? So here I'm just making sure that it is only going to this one. So test app is under Splunk hyphen underscore which will be in universal forwarder 1, and this one should go to correct, right? So test 3 app I have created, and I have make sure that this change should only go to this particular forwarder. Now we did establish a connection, and now I need to execute the reload command. I think yeah, reloaded the server class. Now if everything is good, right, on the newly created see, test 3 has come here, and if you go to another universal, the first universal forwarder, you will not be seeing test 3. Right, sorry, where it is plan forwarder, it is the apps. So you should only see test app, and test app is not here. Please understand, test app is not here. So which means, so in this way we can segregate the configurations to deploy it on a particular forwarders. So this is the second forwarder where I have only deployed now test app 3. For this one I have only deployed test app. Now if we can look at the logs, I should be able to see the data of to restart forwarder. Looks like yes, I need to restart this forwarder. Okay, but before that, let me check. Do we have the necessary configuration? See, I've just created the in deployment server, but I'm able to see the data with configurations on the forwarder, right? So 18.205. This is my index at 25.100. All right. Then I need to restart my Splunk folder in Splunk restart. Okay. Yeah, see. So this is the data. So which means, so the in short, whatever the forwarders we create, and we used to report to all the to the deployment server. So it doesn't mean that all the apps which will be there in the deployment apps folder of the deployment server gets pushed to all the forwarders, right? Because we will be creating a server class, and in this server class we'll be establishing a connection between for this particular test app. Just select the app, test app, and just forward it to one of the client, right? So like this we will do, right? So I hope this is quite clear, and please put your comments if you have any questions and doubts. Thanks for watching.